Well, hello, beautiful people. How we doing today? We are back at it. We are on chapter 12, part 3, and this is for Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. We are deep into it. We're only got a few more videos left of this, so if you guys are following along in the playlist, you're at the final stages. I hope you're really enjoying it because this has been a heck of a ride, and I got to tell you, I am enjoying this book so much. Right now, we're just getting into the final stages of talking about education, learning through adversity and just creating overall harmony. And, right now, the devil is really just kind to break down how distracted, kids can be and how that's very much about the devil's game. And, how we can now go ahead and prevent that. And, I hope if you guys have younger kids, you know, really dissect this chapter in particular. I think there was another chapter too. I think it was like either chapter 8 or 9, which I said was like the best chapter. And really go into that with your kids too, because these things are life principles. I mean, once kids really start to understand these principles, and even adults, I mean, anybody for that matter, how empowering you feel and how you understand that you create your own reality. And that's really what this is all about, so that you do not fall victim to what outside circumstances that are out of your control dictate your life anymore. You dictate your life. Your reality is your reality. And that's what all this is about. So let's just go ahead and continue in on the last part of this chapter, and then we'll go ahead and have a discussion. I do want to do the summary at the end, but we are at the end. I would love if you guys at the end also to put in comments and suggestions, anything. I'm thinking about doing 3 Feet from Gold, the next book, but I also want to do some regular just videos for you guys to have. I know there's a lot of content on there, but there's still plenty more subjects that we can do. So if you guys have any ideas or suggestions, definitely put down below. And let's go ahead and get started here. All right.
What is wisdom? Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you, and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious, willing cooperation in helping you to make life yield whatever you demand of it.
Then accumulated knowledge is not wisdom.
Great heavens, no. If knowledge were wisdom, the achievements of science would not have been converted into implements of destruction.
What is needed to convert knowledge into wisdom?
Time, plus the desire for wisdom. Wisdom is never thrust upon one. It is acquired, if at all, by positive thinking, through voluntary effort.
Is it safe for all people to have knowledge?
It is never safe for anyone to have extensive knowledge without wisdom.
What is the age at which most people who acquire wisdom begin to acquire it?
The majority of people who acquire wisdom do so after they have passed the age of 40. Prior to that time, the majority of people are too busy gathering knowledge and organizing it into plans to spend any effort seeking wisdom.
What circumstance of life is most apt to lead one to acquire wisdom?
Adversity and failure. These are nature's universal languages through which she imparts wisdom to those who are ready to receive it.
Do adversity and failure always bring wisdom?
No, only to those who are ready for wisdom and have voluntarily sought it.
What determines one's readiness to receive wisdom?
Time and the nature of one's thought habits.
Is newly acquired knowledge the same as time-tested knowledge?
No. Knowledge tested through the lapse of time always is superior to that which has been newly acquired. Time gives to knowledge definiteness in both quality and quantity, and dependability. One can never be sure of knowledge that has not been tested.
What is dependable knowledge?
It is knowledge which harmonizes with natural law, which means that it is based upon positive thought.
Does time modify and alter the values of knowledge?
Yes, time modifies and alters all values. That which is accurate knowledge today may become null and void tomorrow because of time's rearrangement of facts and values. Time modifies all human relationships for better or for worse, depending upon the policy through which people relate themselves to one another. In the realm of thought, there is a time when it is proper to sow the seeds of thought, and there is a proper time to reap the harvest of those thoughts. The same as there is a time to sow and a time to reap from the soil of the earth. Without the proper measurement of time between the sowing and the reaping, nature modifies or withholds the rewards of the sowing.
Go ahead now and describe the last two of the 7 principles.
The next principle is harmony. Throughout nature, one may find evidences that all natural law moves in an orderly manner, through the law of harmony. Through the operation of this law, nature forces everything within the range of a given environment to become harmoniously related. Understand this truth, and you will catch a new and a more intriguing vision of the power of environment. You will understand why association with negative minds is fatal to those seeking self-determination.
Do you mean that nature voluntarily forces human beings to harmonize with the influences of their environment?
Yes, that is true. The law of hypnotic rhythm forces upon every living thing the dominating influences of the environment in which it exists.
If nature forces human beings to take on the nature of the environment in which they live, what means of escape are available to people who find themselves in an environment of poverty and failure, but desire to escape?
They must change their environment or remain poverty-stricken. Nature permits no one to escape the influences of his environment. However, nature, in her abundance of wisdom, has given to every normal human being the privilege of establishing his own mental, spiritual, and physical environment. But once he establishes it, he must become a part of it. This is the inexorable working of the law of harmony.
In a business association, for example, who establishes the dominating influence that determines the rhythm of the environment?
The individual or individuals who think and act with definiteness of purpose.
Is it as simple as that?
Yes. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point from which an individual may establish his own environment.
I do not seem to follow your reasoning. The entire world is torn with warfare and business depressions and other forms of strife which represent about everything except harmony. Nature does not seem to be forcing people to harmonize with one another. How do you explain this inconsistency?
There is no inconsistency. The dominating influences of the world are, as you say, negative. Very well, nature is forcing human beings to harmonize with the dominating influences of the world environment.
As in Hill's day, there seems to be little harmony in our world today. When you think of the current economy, the natural disasters, the military conflicts, the human devastation from disease and hunger, does harmony seem even attainable? Hill would say yes, even in the face of the horrible conditions of his time. While you and I may not be in control of harmony in our world, we can create harmony in our homes.
Manifestations of harmony may be either positive or negative. For example, a group of men in prison may, and they generally do, think and act in a negative manner. But nature sees to it that the dominating influence of the prison is impressed upon every individual in it. A group of poverty-stricken people in a tenement house may fight among themselves and apparently resist all forms of harmony. But nature forces each of them to become a part of the dominating influence of the house in which they live. Harmony, in the sense it is here used, means that nature relates everything throughout the universe as to every other thing of a similar nature. Negative influences are forced into association with one another, no matter where they may be. Positive influences are just as definitely forced into association with one another.
I'm beginning to see why successful business leaders are so careful in the choice of their business associates. Men who succeed in any calling usually establish their own environment by surrounding themselves with people who think and act in terms of success. Is that the idea?
That is the idea exactly. Observe, with profit, that the one thing all successful men insist upon is harmony among their business associates. Another trait of successful people is that they move with definiteness of purpose and insist upon their associates doing the same. Understand these two truths, and you understand the major difference between a Henry Ford and a day laborer.
So the principle of harmony is a benefit to us when we surround ourselves with other successful people. Think of the people you work with. Are they supporting you or holding you back?
Good question.
Now, tell me about the last of the 7 principles.
The last principle is caution. Next to the habit of drifting, the most dangerous human trait is the lack of caution. People drift into all sorts of hazardous circumstances because they do not exercise caution by planning the moves they make. The drifter always moves without exercising caution. He acts first and thinks later, if at all. He does not choose his friends. He drifts along and allows people to attach themselves to him on their own terms. He does not choose an occupation. He drifts through school and is glad to get the first job that will give him food and clothing. He invites people to cheat him at trade by neglecting to inform himself of the rules of trade. He invites illness by neglecting to inform himself of the rules of sound health. He invites poverty by neglecting to protect himself against the environmental influences of the poverty-stricken. He invites failure at every step he takes by neglecting to exercise the caution to observe what causes people to fail. He invites fear in all its forms by his lack of caution in examining the causes of fear. He fails in marriage because he neglects to use caution in his choice of a mate, and he uses still less caution in his methods of relating himself to her after marriage. He loses his friends or converts them into enemies by his lack of caution in relating himself to them on the proper basis.
Are all people lacking in caution?
No, only those who have acquired the habit of drifting. The non-drifter always uses caution. He carefully thinks his plans through before he begins them. He makes allowances for the human frailties of his associates and plans ahead to bridge them. If he sends a messenger on an important mission, he sends someone else to make sure the messenger does not neglect his mission. Then he checks on both of them to be sure his wishes have been fulfilled. He takes nothing for granted where caution provides a way to ensure his success.
Isn't overcaution as detrimental as lack of caution?
There is no such thing as overcaution. What you call overcaution is an expression of fear. Fear and caution are two entirely different things.
Don't people mistake fear for overcaution?
Yes, that does sometimes happen. But the majority of people create for themselves far more disastrous hazards by total lack of the habit of caution than by overcaution.
In what way may caution be used most advantageously?
In the selection of one's associates and in one's method of relating oneself to associates. The reason for this is obvious. One's associates constitute the most important part of one's environment, and environmental influences determine whether one forms the habit of drifting or becomes a non-drifter. The person who exercises due caution in the choice of associates never allows himself to be closely associated with any person who does not bring to him, through the association, some definite mental, spiritual, or economic benefit.
Isn't that method of choosing associates selfish?
It is sensible and leads to self-determination. It is the desire of every normal person to find material success and happiness. Nothing contributes more to one's success and happiness than carefully chosen associates. Caution in the selection of associates becomes, therefore, the duty of every person who wishes to become happy and successful. The drifter allows his closest associates to attach themselves to him on their own terms. The non-drifter carefully selects his associates and allows no one to become closely associated with him unless that person contributes some form of helpful influence or bestows some definite benefit.
It never occurred to me that caution in the selection of friends had so definite a bearing on one's success or failure. Do all successful people exercise caution in the selection of all their associates, whether in business, social, or professional relationships?
Without the exercise of caution in the choice of all associates, no one may be certain of success in any calling. On the other hand, lack of exercise of caution brings almost certain defeat in whatever one undertakes.
Do you have a hard time saying no to people? This chapter makes you realize that using caution in selecting your associates and learning to say no more often may speed you on your path to success.
That's awesome. Wow. All right, you guys.
Summary.
Well, let's go ahead.
3
and
things connected
jump
with my
this.
interview with the devil.
Okay. Let's get back here so you guys can see me clearly. All right, there we go. Well, this was very powerful, and I hope that information at the end really helped out, because I always talk about this, and I talked about this in the last video. Who you associate with is so important. And how you can use these caution and just even just again harmonizing with people, when you associate with who you work with, who you live with, and if it's a family member, I mean, it is a little bit challenging to get around that. However, here are some helpful tips, that I tell people, is that you want to see the person the way you want to see them. What you focus on expands. So if you have like a nagging person in your life, right? But you can't get them out of your life, or it doesn't feel like you can get them out of your life because they're a family member, maybe a loved one, things like that. Well, you need to not see them as that nagging person. You need to see them when they're not that person. And that's the only way that you see them. So by doing that, what ends up happening is you will naturally only be around that person when they're not nagging. If they're doing all those other things, they're just not doing it around you, because you've now made up in your mind your reality of that person is going to be the person that doesn't nag, the person that is just kind and very helpful, says nice things to you. And so the perception that you create of a person is what you will get more of. And this is really hard to grasp and understand, but this is really what they're talking about here. Because in situations you can control a lot more than you can, a lot more than you think you can, right? And now if there's someone that you don't even need to have around, well then get rid of them. You know what I mean? Or spend less time with them. There's an abundance of people. I know family's a little bit tricky, so that's why I'm giving you that tip there. But when it comes to associating with business partners and just your partner in general, if you feel that this person is not bringing you value and and it's holding you back, there is no need to keep that person around, again, unless it's family. But even then, you need to see that family member different. But it's not worth your time and energy to do it with somebody who doesn't need to be in your life. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helpful. And we are now at the end of the book. We're going to do a brief summary, and that'll be one more video that we'll do here shortly, tomorrow, and then we'll be done, and then we'll go ahead and get back into the regular coaching stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and until next time, you guys make it a great day. Take care.